This is the only thing we've ever done that's just as fun legal as it is illegal.
I'm your host, Jeff Zart. We're going to take you behind the scenes with the craft distillers who are pouring their heart and soul into crafting the next version of America's spirit. This is the Great American Whiskey Cookers. On this edition of the Great American Whiskey Cookers, we are headed to Carroll, Iowa, in the county of Carroll, and we're going to go talk to two guys, Heath, the bootlegger's grandson, and Whiskey Rich, and we're going to learn all about this Iowa legendary rye.
And you know what I'm looking forward to is learning about one of the early examples of an American franchise that involved Al Capone, a guy named Earl Beck, and the grandmother of Heath.
This is going to be fun.
Let's go.
Hey, welcome to this edition of the Great American Whiskey Cookers. Today we are in Carroll, Iowa, in the county of Carroll, Iowa, right outside of Templeton, Iowa, and I know you've heard that name before. We're going to go talk to the guys here at Iowa Legendary Rye, Heath, Max, and Whiskey Rich, and we're going to learn all about their whiskey. Join us. Today we are hanging with the guys from Iowa Legendary Rye and Sextro Rye. So before we get started, guys, introduce yourselves and tell us who you are and what your role is and what you do. Rich, we'll start with you.
Well, my name's Rich, and I started this, but I have nothing to do with it anymore. I just come down and hang out and annoy everybody.
Okay.
I'm Heath. I'm the bootlegger's grandson. That is my official title with the company, is bootlegger's grandson, and yet again, another person who's not officially employed by the company or any part of the company, just promoting my grandma's recipe.
And I'm Max. I'm the master distiller. I learned everything from Rich, allegedly.
Allegedly. So before we get too far into, so you're the first alleged legal
Yep.
distiller
Yep.
for Iowa Legendary Rye for what you guys are making here, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit. And then we have Kurt across the table from me, one of the executive producers, and you all know me, I'm Jeff. So let's talk about your backstory. What is this backstory behind Iowa Legendary Rye?
Lorene and Frank, Shorty, Sextro, this is her baker's recipe. They did this during Prohibition. They weren't bad people, they were good people. All these people that made booze, they were good. They weren't criminals. They did it to pay for their kids' clothes, save their farms, and feed their family. Lorene made 300 gallons a day on their farm.
300 gallons a day?
Yeah, at height of production, it went to Kansas City, Denver, Colorado, Chicago. They used to meet behind old Shepner farm to pick, Al Capone's guys did to pick it up. It was one of his favorite drinks. This was famous because of Joe Earlbeck.
And tell us the backstory on that.
Well, Joe started it. He'd pay people to cook on their farm, and if you went to prison for him, he'd pay your bills and buy food for the family until you got out and you didn't owe him nothing because you went to prison for him. And the feds were after him constantly.
Okay, so I walked into the tasting room and I see this standing in front of me. You know, as soon as you see it, and you showed us out at the farm that we were at, the original farm,
Correct.
where Lorene was making whiskey.
Yep.
Right?
And this is her original still.
This is what you guys dug up out of the ground.
Correct. So we pulled this out of the ground, and we had Whiskey Rich set it up the way it would have been set up in 1932, with the cinder blocks on the bottom, the red bricks on the top, and then the corn cobs, because they didn't burn wood, they burned corn cobs, and then you throw those corn cobs down here in this little porthole, and that creates all the heat, and then that boils this still, and then the still runs up into the worm, down into the barrel, the cooler barrel, and then runs down into the cooling tubes. And this is actually an authentic raccoon bone. It's from the penis of a raccoon. And they use these in real bootlegging.
Why?
To plug the worm.
Oh.
It's perfect fit, plug the worm. So yet again, all authentic, the way it was done, the way we do everything, and courtesy of Whiskey Rich, we actually have a real pecker bone from The bootlegging days.
When the steam hits the worm and the water turns back into liquid, you can't get the alcohol in the jug. Falls the raccoon dick bone right into it, see?
Right into the jug. Old school.
It's crazy.
Old school.
Old school
Like
indeed.
the way it was really done. The advantages of having an alleged 5th generation bootlegger on your team.
This thing is funny as hell. That's your main condenser. That's exactly like a, no, this is thumper tank.
No.
That's exactly like a marijuana bong's how that works. It's a pot still. It may be a submarine still, but all those stills are pot stills, and they'll only make about 80 proof alcohol. And they figured out, well, whoever made that had to smoke weed somewhere because they figured out they put uncooked mash in there and run the steam through the mash. This would be above it.
Sure.
It would pick up the extra alcohol and turn it into 100, 120 proof, and then bring it out. And it's the same way as. There was 3 families that had 100% rye recipe. That was it. Everything else was a mix of whatever they could get. 2 of them, or all the family members, are completely dead. They took it with them. This is the only existing one. And, you know, you have a lot of people that sat out there that try to bullshit everybody. For one, if you're making an original recipe and you're not using sugar, you're a lying son of a bitch. I'll tell you that. I'll tell anybody to their face that. And I'll do a taste test with any of these motherfuckers because they use enzymes.
Yeah.
And then MPG is a good company.
MGP.
MGP makes whiskey for how many?
150.
150
brands.
distilleries. And some people, I'm not saying any names, but you look on the back of every single fucking bottle made, and right underneath, produced and bottled in, it says distilled in Indiana.
The recipe that made Carroll County famous, the recipe that made Templeton famous, is water, sugar, rye, and yeast. Period.
Those ingredients.
Right.
Period.
Barrel.
Correct. And what they make here, what Max learned, what is being done here is that recipe, and it's the only surviving recipe from that time and place. So if people want to try what Al Capone said was the good stuff, if they want to try what Al Capone said was the best, that's it. And that's the only version of it, that's it. And everything else is sourced bullshit. And what frustrates me is that there's 15 families' histories out there that is going misappropriated. It's literally going misappropriated, where people pick up a bottle and they're like, oh, look at that name, look at that brand. I've heard of that place, I've heard of that time. Oh, this is what that tastes like. That absolutely drives me crazy because that's not true.
It's not the recipe.
It's not the recipe. It's not what the Chicago outfit deemed as the good stuff. What is and will always be is what these guys do, and it's being done exactly the way my grandmother did it in 1932.
You can't
technically call it whiskey
because
because of sugar in the mash.
It was at one time, but then when it got money involved,
There you go.
When the TTB got involved and the big manufacturers got involved,
then they changed
they
everything.
deemed sugar to be not part of a whiskey recipe.
Sure.
So they switched it over, so now you have only one option.
And technical.
You have to use grain and alpha amylase to break down your grain and malted barley. That's the only way you can call it whiskey. But if you want to have what made the town of Templeton famous, it wasn't whiskey at all. It's actually a rum with a rye in it that is in a category of its own. And that's why I tell you that this guy's the only one making that recipe because he's the only
Nobody
one
else has
doing
got
it that way. So it's the difference between 1930 whiskey
Yep.
and 2022 whiskey. It's different, and it's because they changed the definition.
Got it.
Yeah.
So I got a question for you. What is this? So tell me about this. I saw this and I got to know just This looks like one of the stills from over there, but it's a whole lot smaller.
Right. This is called a still on the run. This is literally, so when you're cooking out in the field, this is a 6-gallon pot still with our pot reflux apparatus that you saw on our commercial grade.
Right.
But this is like turkey baster version of a still. 6 gallons makes 1 gallon. And this is real bootlegging. If you look in this picture, you see that little gas stand. So you take this, put it on a gas stand, and you make 1 gallon a day out in the field.
Oh my God.
Yeah, literally put it on wood and you could do it out in the next to the lake. That's how authentic our little styling here is it's all designed around real bootlegging, not alleged bootlegging or alleged small craft. This is real, the way it was done back then and the way we do it now. I would have to contend that this may be the smallest batch size of anything in the world.
One thing with that is, yeah, we have small batch stills, but the way they're designed with our technology, that Lorene design that we kept the same, we outproduce the bigger stills. So the yield that we get off our small stills outproduces their bigger stills if you compare them all together.
So how many stills you got? 6?
We got 6, yeah.
6 can outproduce the bigger stills, is what you're saying.
On total yield per
total
cook
yield.
on per gallons, yeah.
I see hillbilly stills, and then I see some contraptions that I've never really seen before. Walk us through this, Max.
Yeah, so the bottom part is just a mash bucket.
And it says hillbilly stills on it.
It's all mass produced by Hillbilly Stills. We just buy them on their website. This part up here is the flute, where we actually have that handcrafted and specially designed.
And this is custom designed, right?
Yep.
You guys
patents pending on them. Yep. And yes, we have it all.
So this is not something that you bought from any of the still makers.
Nope. It's a 100-year-old technology, so it's kind of a contraption, a few different stills, almost put all together, but exactly how Lorene did it 100 years ago. The only thing that we changed is we changed everything from stainless to copper.
Okay.
Because stainless is almost can't grow bacteria. I mean, anything can,
Sure.
but way easier to keep clean. But back in the day, they didn't have access to that. So that's one of the nice things that we have. And then also we added a burp tube in it for a safety measure.
Okay.
Other than that, this is basically a 100-year-old technology, exactly how they did it.
I have the luxury, or we have the luxury, Max does now, using stainless steel. You got to have copper, because copper impurities in whiskey is like a sponge to water. But copper grows bacteria. Stainless steel cannot, and you do not want bacteria. And it's easy to clean, it's easy to keep clean, and you don't have to worry about bad stuff happening. But you know, you got copper. Some people pack their stills with copper chips, some ceramics, and some people use copper mesh.
Which leads into the whole antique marbles and copper insert stuff that Rich created.
We're not going to talk about that.
We're not going to talk about it too much, but it's a specific number of marbles, it's a specific type, and he gets mad at me every time I talk about it because it's secret sauce.
Yep. See, the antique glass marbles is the only thing we're going to talk about, and they do 3 things that ceramics will never do.
Which is?
Well, first of all, if you cook too hot, you'll never make awesome whiskey, ever.
Okay.
And if you're cooking too hot, they sing to you. They go zzz, tells you to turn water up and flame down. And when you take them apart and clean them, and you see chips in the marbles, you're cooking too hot. You're not making the best whiskey you can make. And the other thing is, and I hate saying this, but well, you know what? Most people think I'm full of shit anyway. The tails won't let the tails pass. Glass won't let tails pass to get into your shit.
Really?
It drops it back down. At the cooking stage, it drops it back down and back into your mash pit, and you don't get the unflavorable shit in your steam.
Okay.
But that's all I'm going to say.
And you're not going to tell us how many marbles you used.
No.
These guys are doing 3.5 gallon batches.
So how many barrels are you producing a day?
On full production, about 4 barrels.
About 4, and you're using small barrels,
Yeah,
right?
50 gallons.
But we're only cooking
quarter cast.
twice a day, right?
Yeah, 2 runs.
I see Heath just put up a couple barrel staves here. So and you're using 15-gallon barrels?
Yeah, so most places use 53-gallon barrels.
Right.
My grandma allegedly gave Rich's family some real shit about that because they showed up with a 53-gallon barrel, and she's like, "What's this?"
Said, what the hell's wrong with you, Chuck? and he said, what did I do? And she said, I told you, 15-gallon kegs. Pick that son of a bitch up and run with it. You're going to prison. And there's other reasons.
Well, even a 15-gallon keg is going to weigh.
Well, if you can pick up a
220 pounds.
if you can pick up a 54-gallon keg and run with it, you're not worried about the fats.
Yeah, that's true.
But anyway, and they those 15-gallon kegs do in 18 to 24 months exactly what a 54 or 53-gallon keg does in 5 years.
Because you got 3.15 times more wood.
You got more whiskey touching wood. Sure. And they're more manageable. You can rock them, shake them. And actually, I can't go there. That's secret.
So where do you get your barrels at?
That's not telling you.
You're not going to tell me where you get your barrels?
That's none ya.
But
None your business?
Yep.
But Jeff, look at this. This blew me away when they showed me this. Look at the whiskey line on that stave.
Mm-hmm. The red line?
Yeah, that is practically over halfway into the oak. And that is highly unique. If you look at most staves, you're in the first quarter inch if you're lucky. But this recipe actually gets almost to within 1/8 of an inch in some of the barrels that they have. And that's unique to what these guys do.
And this is the size stave from a regular 15-gallon barrel?
Correct.
No,
No.
that's 5-gallon.
5-gallon barrel.
Oh, that's 5?
That's 15 gallons.
Oh, yeah.
This is 15 gallon cut down a little bit.
Gotcha. But even look at that. Look at how deep that is in the wood. Look at how deep that is. That's
Great.
compared to any other barrel you'll ever see as far as
Yeah,
whiskey
big
line.
boys don't know how to do that.
That is amazing, and that's where these guys get that sweet, soft mouthfeel on what they're making. Between that and the recipe being a no chemical, no enzymes, no malted barley recipe, they're the only ones doing this.
And
the
what's-
only ones doing this.
And what's the char level?
I'm telling it, that's none of
You
your
don't tell me
business.
that either.
None
In
ya.
fact, that's more none ya?
None ya.
More
yeah.
none ya.
While I'm thinking about it,
Yeah.
this is off the deal, but angel share. Now I'm going to have a lot of people argue, but what my opinion, a true angel share is, it's not evaporation.
Okay. What is it?
When you get done making booze, the still's done, it's sitting there, you just can't proof it and then bottle it. It has to sit overnight, because during the night, say it's 102 proof. The next morning, the angels have came during the night and they took 2 proof. Now it's 100. That's angel share.
That's what you're calling the angel share.
Yeah.
It's an interesting take. I've never heard that before.
Well, that's what it is. If you got to leave the shit sit overnight, and then you can proof it, because it's always the angel takes its share, and it may be 0.5, it may be whole proof, 2 proof.
Sure.
And then you can proof it because it'll never change.
But what you're saying, though, if I understand you right, because we've talked about this, is you're saying that the volume of liquid is still the same.
Correct.
Proof has changed.
Yeah, you can put it in a sealed
So
tube.
what he's saying is it didn't evaporate.
Right.
The
volume stayed.
The volume is the same, but the proof
So if there was
changed.
3
You
how do
can
you
fill
explain
this
that?
up and seal this,
Right.
and it was 102 proof when it went in there. When you take it out,
It's 100 proof.
there's the exact same amount of liquid.
But it's just,
It's 100 proof.
Right.
That's the angel share.
that's the angel share.
And I don't know how it got so screwed up.
I know what I wanted to ask you. Let's talk about ingredients. Where do all your ingredients come from? You're sourcing your rye from Germany, right? It's all coming from there?
No, we're not. The Boy, that's great, man. I want to add to that so bad.
I know you do. Big old softball.
And not Poland either, right, Rich?
Yeah. Tell them who grows that rye. I don't know.
Yeah, Brian Earlbeck in Manning, Iowa.
Happens to be the cousin of Joe Earlbeck.
The cousin of Joe Earlbeck.
Yep. And it's all 100% certified organic now. So with that process, it takes 4 years. They have 3 trial years, where he is growing it organically, but that 4th year is when you're supposed to have everything out of it, all the contaminants out of it. So on that 4th year, it's certified organic, and the feds can go out to his farm anytime they want, take a sample without even letting them know, and contest it. Yeah.
So all your rye is local within
Purpose grown.
Purpose Grown.
Only
Just
ones,
for you guys.
only ones buying it. Mm-hmm. Yep. And
20 minutes down the road too.
yeah.
That's kind of nice. So you
Carroll
can-
County.
And that's not Germany.
I had to throw that out there just for you.
Yeah, no, I have. Well, it's true.
You want to say it, don't you?
No, it is true.
I know it is true. Hey, we're standing here in the fields in western Iowa, and I'm standing with
Brian Earlbeck.
Brian Earlbeck. You might remember the name Earlbeck. Yes, there's a relation there. We're standing here in the fields. This is the very fields where Iowa Legendary Rye and Sextro Rye gets their rye crop from. So, but before we get into that, tell me about where we're standing and what you do here.
Right here, we farm around 1,100 acres, farm ground.
And this is a heritage farm, right?
This is, yes.
And explain what a heritage farm is.
Heritage farm is one that's handed down from generation to generation. And so it's been handed down from Teresa's grandpa to her dad, and then from her dad we bought it, and we own it now.
Okay, so we're standing in a rye field.
Yes.
Doesn't look like much.
Nope, not for winter.
So explain to me the rye cooking process, so to speak, to make rye.
To put it in the ground, well, we have to decide in the fall where we want to plant it, and this is where we put it on this ground. And we have to get it in the fall so that it can start to grow, and it has to freeze. To get it to produce seed, it has to have a frost or be frozen, and then it'll produce a seed for the next year. So this is starting to grow, and then next spring it will green up again, and then it'll get to about 3 foot tall is when we harvest it.
So then it gets green. So how long does it take to grow in the spring?
Usually it'll take off very early because it doesn't take very much for temperature. It'll start growing in early April, and then by July, end of June, it'll start turning yellow, and then by July it'll be pretty well yellow. And about the 3rd week of July, in that week, usually depending on weather, is when we harvest it, and it'll be totally yellow. It'll test probably around 13% moisture, and then we'll harvest that and put it in the bin.
These guys go to painstaking measures to make sure everything that they do is exactly the way it was done in 1932. Seriously, if we could put you all in a time machine and zip you back to the streets of Chicago in 1932, I would be willing to bet that this is exactly what you'd have tasted. And who's doing that right now? You know, who can take you back and give you that right now?
And that product that they're going to look for in those markets is Sextro.
Correct.
It's not Iowa Legendary, right?
Correct.
That's
which
an
is
Iowa product.
which is a great question.
Right. It's Sextro.
So Iowa Legendary Rye is an Iowa product. Sextro is the rest of the world.
Okay.
And is the barrel picks and the hand picks and all, that's all
But
Sextro.
isn't it the exact same product?
It is the exact same product.
Same juice, just a different
just
label.
Cask strength, custom labels, custom bottles.
You guys have a tasting room here,
Yep.
right? So if somebody comes here, can they buy it here?
Absolutely.
So they can buy a bottle from you here in Carroll, Iowa.
Correct.
Right? And
They can buy it from the master distiller.
so if I'm buying it here, can I choose Iowa Legendary or Sextro, or can I only buy Iowa Legendary?
Well, no, you can only buy Iowa Legendary here because so in order for these guys to sell, they have to make it, sell it to the state, and then take it back and then sell it. You can't just make it and sell it. You have to make it, sell it back to the state, and then someone can buy it from you.
And because Iowa Legendary is only distributed in Iowa, and
Correct.
Sextro isn't,
Correct.
I can buy Iowa Legendary Rye here
Correct.
at the distillery.
Yeah.
But if I want the Sextro, I got to go to one of the other states
Correct.
that you're in. And how many other states are you in? Let's talk about that real quick.
So right now, they're in 24 states physically,
Okay.
and 44 states e-commerce.
Okay.
So Sextro Rye, which is Sextros, SEXTROS.com. You can go on sextros.com and order into 44 states right
Okay.
now. And you know what? It's finally coming around. We're served in 5 of the finest restaurants in Las Vegas. We're doing a collaboration with one of the most famous winemakers in Napa Valley. We're going to be served in one of the nicest liquor stores in Newport Beach. We're moving into New York and New Jersey with one of the best distributors in all of New York and New Jersey. We're going into a barrel where they only do barrel picks, and you have to be part of their club, and you have to buy an NFT in order to get those barrels. We were picked for that.
Were you? I was going to ask you about NFTs and if you're going to get into that.
We're being dragged into it because they tried that product. We're in South Beach now in some of the finest restaurants. We're in Chicago now.
Okay, so this has been a great discussion. Guys, thank you a lot for this. Lots of good information, lots of good content, some phenomenal history. Heath, tell us where somebody can find you guys online, or how to get in touch with you.
So to get it online, the Sextro Rye recipes are all the same. Probably best place to get free shipping is sextros.com, SEXTROS.com.
Okay.
And that over $99 free shipping.
Okay.
And you can also go to iowalegendaryrye.com, just the words iowalegendaryrye.com if you prefer the Iowa Legendary Rye label. And then lastly, we do have a sourced vodka. It's an Iowa vodka, 100% corn, known as L190, comes out of the distillery out in Muscatine, Iowa. Great vodka at havesextro.com. HAVESEXTRO.com. Great vodka, free shipping with 3 bottles.
Or I know a gravel road you can meet a guy on.
We can talk about that later. Most definitely. Hey, thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode and this table talk with the guys. We hope you learned a whole lot. You can find us at greatamericanwhiskeycookers.com and check us out on the socials. Until next time, if you can't be good at it.
Underneath here is where they kept the pigs, and they'd take the spent rye and throw it down so the pigs have themselves a little celebration every time after a still cook was done. Grandma used to laugh. The pigs would just roll around, just
Get drunker and skunk.
sloppy as hell.
Oh my God.
She thought that was really funny.
Hey, one of the things we really enjoy here at the Bourbon Bunker is sitting by the fire, drinking some whiskey with some friends. If we're lucky, maybe you'll get to join us sometime. In order to do that, head over to our Patreon site, subscribe, pledge some money. We would really appreciate the support, especially as we head to the other distilleries. We got a lot more coming up over the course of the next year, 2 years. So check us out. Until next time, if you can't be good at it. See ya.
There you go.
Is that it?
That is a wrap.